guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be showing you how to make one of these new fancy little dice bags, complete with 6 pockets and a main compartment, perfect for holding all of your tokens and dice sets. This also double functions as a jewelry bag, and it's a great gift idea. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get started.
For supplies, you will need your fabric for the back of the bag, your contrast fabric for your pockets, your cord or rope, I cut at least 2 yards, scissors or a rotary cutter, tape measure, your eyelets or grommets with tool for application, an iron and ironing board, optional, and some tailor's chalk. Not pictured, you will need a rubber mallet or hammer and a ruler.
First thing you're going to do is use your shears or rotary cutter and cut the circles of your contrast fabric and your main fabric. Your main fabric, I used a 40 centimeter circle made out of cardboard with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, and I used a 27 centimeter paper plate. This included my seam allowance for my contrast fabric. So you're going to have 2 of your contrast fabric and 2 of your main fabric. I personally used my rotary cutter, but if you do not have one, you can use your fabric shears.
The next thing I did was take my tape measure and my tailor's chalk and measure my 1 centimeter seam allowance that was already included in my cutout, and just mark that out around the entire circle of fabric. After pinning my fabric together, we're going to take it over to the sewing machine using a basic stitch with a reverse stitch to keep it in place and sew all the way around, leaving at least a 2-inch wide gap for turning your fabric. Make sure to maintain the 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way around. Once you're finished sewing, use that 2-inch gap to turn your fabric right side out. Be sure to check your seams all the way around, making sure they are closed. Once your fabric is completely turned, finger press or use an iron to press your fabric flat. Once your fabric has been pressed, you're going to use a needle and thread to hand sew that opening closed. I used a basic stitch. Any stitch will work of your preference. A ladder stitch, slip stitch, it's personal preference. Bringing this up a little closer, you can see to tie off your stitch, you're going to start as if you're a regular stitch, like normal, halfway through. You're going to pull the needle through and back through your loop to tie it off. I usually do this about 2 or 3 times to make sure my knot is secure. Once again, we'll go through the fabric. And instead of pulling your string all the way through, you're going to turn back around and go through the loop I just made, holding with my finger here to make another knot. Cut off your excess thread and we will press their seam flat. As you can kind of see here, my hand sewing's not that great. It does get better with practice, but that also depends on what kind of stitch you use. I didn't care too much because this is going to be on the inside of my bag. Now we're going to start dividing our fabric to make our pockets. We'll start out first by folding the fabric in half. If you're using an iron, you're going to press along this seam here. A little extra piece of string caught there. You will iron along this seam here to make your first press. Opening it back up, I'm going to take my ruler and my tailor's chalk and draw right along that line I just made when I finger pressed that seam. If you're using an iron, the tailor's chalk is completely unnecessary. It's just a preference on what kind of tool you want to use. You're going to repeat this process 2 more times to make a total of 6 pockets. Be sure that all your pockets are even in size. I was a little unsure of my folds here, so I decided to take my measuring tape and find the exact midpoint to make sure my folds were going through all of those lines, because I wanted my pockets to be perfectly even. When you're finished, it should look like a little mini pizza with 6 slices. Next, you're going to take one piece of your main fabric right side up and put your contrast pocket fabric in the middle. Use a tape measure to make sure you are even on all sides. Once you're happy with your placement, you're going to pin the pockets in place. Coming back over to your sewing machine, using your basic stitch again, you're going to sew down all 3 lines you drew on your contrast pocket fabric. Next, you'll take your remaining piece of main fabric and lay it right side down on top of everything we just sewed. Pinning it in place, make sure to match all side seams together. Taking this over to your sewing machine, you're going to repeat the same process we did with the contrast fabric, sewing all the way around using a 1 cm seam allowance, being sure to leave a 2 to 3 inch hole for turning it right side out. After turning your fabric right side out, we're ready to place the grommets. I placed a pin to show where the pockets are on the inside. I chose to make my channel for my rope 2 centimeters away from the pockets and 1.5 centimeters wide. This allowed me to choose where to place my grommets. Using your shears, cut a small hole for the bottom of the grommet to slip into. Be sure your grommets are facing the right way. This will affect the way the metal bends and how your rope will slip through. Next, you're going to take your tool for your eyelets or grommets, place it on the bottom or inside of the fabric, and place it on a hard surface. You'll use the longer tool on the top of the eyelet and hold that in place. Next, grab your rubber mallet and you will beat the grommet or eyelet closed. Sometimes the metal of the eyelets or grommets doesn't always bend the right way, so to fix this I ended up taking a pair of needle nose pliers and bending it the correct way. So this is what they looked like after I took the needle nose pliers and bent the metal around. I still had a few pieces that were sticking through, like this one here on the left, and when I bent the right one I accidentally bent it almost closed. So definitely if you do use the needle nose pliers, be careful not to bend your grommets too much, but it didn't seem to affect the way my rope went through, so I was okay with it. The next thing we're going to do is sew the channel for the rope. So the bottom of my channel is going to be 2 centimeters from the inside pockets, and the top of the channel is going to be 1.5 centimeters away from that bottom line. Make sure when you're sewing this that you stop and start before the grommets. If you would like, you can sew the channel around the grommets, but it will cause your channel to be wider. So here is what my channel looked like after I was finished. It was 1.5 centimeters wide, almost all the way around. I did have a little bit of trouble in areas like this, but your grommets are going to stop and start the channel. Now it's time to feed the rope through the grommet and through your channel. I did put a little bit of tape on the end of my rope just to prevent it from fraying during this process. You could also use a safety pin if that's easier for you, but you just started out through the grommet and actually ended up using the opening left to help get it through the grommet a little bit easier. Once I had the rope through the grommet, I just moved it back and forth through the grommet to make sure it was going to move easily and it wasn't going to catch or fray my rope. Next, take your rope back inside and we're going to start flowing it through the channel. Once you get your rope all the way through the channel and back to the end, you're going to flow it back out through the opposite grommet. I did decide to leave my extra rope still attached for now because I wasn't sure how much I was going to cut off just yet. And just like we did before with our pocket and contrast fabric, we're going to sew our opening closed. After everything was so closed, I just decided to do a few test runs with my rope by pulling the bag closed to see how much I needed to cut off. After cutting off your excess rope, either wrap or burn the edges of your rope to prevent it from fraying. If you chose a rope like me, burning it didn't quite work, so I did have to end up wrapping the ends with just a similar color string, and I ended up hot gluing the very end of the rope so that it didn't fray. And there you go, you have your finished dice bag, complete with 6 pockets. I have found that each pocket is the perfect size for a complete set of dice, so you can hold a total of 6 sets of dice in your bag, and any tokens or extra sets in the main compartment. Well guys, I hope this tutorial helped you. This is also a great design to turn into a jewelry bag or a great gift idea for any one of your fellow campaign and role players. Let me know if you use this design in the future, any tweaks or changes that you made. I want to see your pictures and I want to hear your comments. Let me know and make sure you like and subscribe to my channel.